Hey guys, thanks for joining us. I'm Josh Hanna with Metahuman.com. I'm here today with Elias Arjan. He's an extraordinary human being. Elias, tell us what you do.
So I'm the founder and CEO of Business Brain, which is a management consulting firm around peak performance for the corporate side. I also am a business development partner with BioStrap, so that's sort of a next generation wearable.
Mhm.
And I'm the executive director of the Biohackers Collective. So we are in about 30 cities. We're the largest not-for-profit biohacking organization in the world. And I'm also the organizer of the LA chapter, where we are here in beautiful Los Angeles.
Yeah, awesome. When did you start the Biohackers Collective?
The collective wasn't started by me directly. It was started by, there is a founder, and just last year, 2018, I took over the LA chapter, and we've had great success here in Los Angeles. So they asked me to sort of talk about how to replicate these results in the other chapters, because there's chapter leaders in 30 cities.
Yeah.
And biohacking is kind of ground zero right here in Los Angeles. So
Yeah.
a lot of what we're doing here is being exported around the world, but we're kind of doing a lot of the testing, the development, even the qualification of what is the good biohacking tech and systems here in LA. So it's a great place to be if you're interested in that.
Yeah. So we had Samir on the show.
Yes.
And Samir told us a lot about the BioStrap. Obviously, anyone that's watching the show probably knows what biohacking is already. But
Maybe.
maybe. But for those of you that don't, essentially, we are biohackers are probably the most obsessive people on the planet about optimizing their biology, their mental performance, physical performance,
Right.
emotional health. Really, like in my perspective, biohacking is trying to achieve your highest degree of expression, probably on an epigenetic level, to where
Right.
we're really fully embodied. And
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I often talk is a lot of people are calling themselves biohackers because they're doing like intermittent fasting and
Yeah.
having like, a fat tea or coffee in the morning. And I'm trying to educate the public that biohacking actually involves an aspect of science.
yeah,
So, if you look at how you do scientific experimentation, you have to get a baseline. That's why the BioStrap is so great, because
Yeah.
it gives anyone the opportunity to get a baseline of your biometrics, do an intervention. A biohack, right, is an intervention. So
Yeah.
you can take a substance, you can try methodology, you can, meditation practice, for example, and then see how it changes your biometrics.
yeah,
And that is, the basis of all scientific experimentation.
totally.
So that's biohacking
Yeah.
in a nutshell. You have to do that, though. If
Yeah.
you just say you're a biohacker because you're like taking a supplement,
Yeah.
to me that doesn't count.
Because it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not just. I mean, there's a lot of people that are interested in improving their health.
Right.
But biohacking is more of a lifestyle of constantly working on improving all the variables that impact your health.
And there has to be an aspect of measurement
Yeah.
and quantification.
Totally.
So without measurement, like, you can't improve what you don't measure.
Yeah.
Right. So, I do this with organizations. We do a lot of measurements, of the operation. I mean, and a lot of the measurements we have in fitness are very outdated. I mean, people are still using the scale.
Yeah.
Is the number one fitness
To see what
measurement.
your weight is. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the number one. It's still the number one measurement that most people have, because it's easy.
Yeah.
You have a scale in the bathroom. You get up in the morning, you weigh yourself, and you can see the change.
Yeah.
But water weight, muscle, of course, being heavier than fat. There's a lot of other variables that happen there. So that's not the best, biometric to use. Is
Yeah.
your weight.
Yeah.
And I mean, people are getting more advanced these days. There's a lot of fat testers where you can test your body fat percentage. But really, like I said, in the biohacking space, there's a lot of new tech that's available.
Yeah.
The BioStrap being one of the best that I could find. That's
Totally.
why I partnered with the company, because I was like, this is amazing. We can basically turn anybody into a biohacker
Yeah.
for very low cost.
For sure.
Without needing to go to the lab, every month.
And I think that's for me, like I caught onto this movement right when it was really first gaining momentum.
Right.
And so for quantitative analysis at that point, hormone testing, blood testing,
Yeah.
spending a lot of money essentially to test and measure your biometrics and then retest and see if you're getting improvements. And
Right.
that can be really expensive and kind of difficult.
Yeah. So you have biometrics, which we can test with, say, something like the BioStrap and some of these wearables. Biomarkers, though, which are like blood lipid proteins,
Yeah.
just sort of hormones, genetic testing. I mean, these are things that I think you should also do as well. And if you get a couple of these things together, you start to have a really good picture of your health. So really what we're moving towards is a new model of health and wellness, which is highly personalized, and also too, which is based on science. But this is the key thing, is that there's a lot of onus on the individual.
Yeah.
You can't outsource your health.
Yeah.
And I think we live in a culture where if you outsource your health, we get this.
Yeah.
We get 100 million people in the United States, diabetic or pre-diabetic. So that's become normal.
Yeah.
This should not be normal. The body was not designed to be in a state of insulin resistance.
Yeah.
Right? Insulin is a system that the body has to manage its biology and attain homeostasis. But the fact that one out of every 3 people can no longer do that, that's what happens when you outsource your health.
Yeah.
And so there is a sense of ownership that has to come in, and on the individual. And I think that's why I like the biohacking space, because these are individuals who are saying, okay, I'm going to take that responsibility on. And I think what we have to do as the innovators is make it, we'll do the testing, find what works, and hopefully we can share that with people to make it easier for them.
Yeah. And for people that are kind of just familiarizing themselves with some of these terms, biohacking, biotechnology, it can seem really overwhelming.
Yes.
For people that don't have a background in health science or didn't study biochemistry,
yes.
and don't know all these terms like heart rate variability and everything that we're talking about. And I think that's what's amazing about BioStrap and this project that you're involved with, is that you can literally get this strap, and I went really deep in the episode with Samir about the BioStrap, and you can get this strap, and it measures quite a few biometrics.
Right. The 4 key biomarkers that it measures is resting heart rate.
Yeah.
The SpO2, which is something no other wearable measures, which is actually the oxygen saturation of the hemoglobin in your blood.
Yeah.
Which a lot of even physicians, when they see that we can get SpO2 from a wearable, they're like, what? Because nobody else is doing that.
Yeah.
You also get your respiration rate, and then you get the HRV. And the HRV is the key one. So those are the 4 key biomarkers or biometrics that we're measuring. But then we're also doing sleep tracking.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an epidemic of sleep issues today.
Oh, yeah.
And the problem is the reason people aren't sleeping today is incredibly complex. It's not only just one thing, it's the always on aspect of our culture with like social media and the internet.
So constantly being overstimulated.
Yeah. So our nervous system is in a state of high readiness. And so I encounter this in my management consulting practice. I used to go into companies and I'm like, hi, I'm Elias. I'm your high performance trainer, and we're here to optimize your performance. And now when I go in and do that today, people go, oh my God, I see somebody turn sheet white.
Yeah.
Because they just think, oh no, this guy's going to ask me to do more. I'm barely treading water right now. Like I'm about to I'm this close to a nervous breakdown. They're just overwhelmed by the responsibilities they have. They're trying to keep their job together. You're answering emails now. People go home, spend some time with their family, put their kids to bed, and then they're back on email.
Yeah.
And they're answering all their business emails between that time. So between 9, I don't know how many people I get emails in the corporate space between 9 and 1 a.m. Yeah. 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. They're answering emails.
Yeah.
So, it used to be 9 to 5, you went home. That was it. Mm-hmm. So we're always on. So when you're doing that and then you go to bed, your brain is still active. Your nervous system is still in a state of trying to keep you in a state of readiness, so you can actually shut down. That's why everyone's trying to do meditation now, because people are trying to figure out how to shut down their nervous systems. And then you add to that electronics themselves with the blue light suppress melatonin production. A lot of people don't even realize that. Yeah. That just looking at your device after dark is preventing the ability of the body to produce melatonin. Yeah. So then people are taking sleep drugs. So you have these incredible cycles that are creating, long-term chronic diseases. Yeah. And there is solutions. Yeah. That's biohacking, is finding those solutions and recognizing. So, when I do, wellness consulting in the corporate space, I'm telling people, a couple hours before bed, you got to turn off your electronics. Yeah. And you got to just start to calm the nervous system down, increase your melatonin production, start to find different, and sometimes we even need to take things, but there's a lot of natural supplements you can take
Mm-hmm.
that will calm the nervous system down. So, I'm not knocking pharmaceuticals. There's times that they're absolutely necessary, but there's one thing I learned about doing biohacking my whole life that a lot of people don't realize, and that's the body is lazy.
Yeah.
Meaning that if you come from the outside and you give the body a substance, or you give the body a mechanism to do something, and the body says, "Oh, you're going to just do that for me," then I don't have to do it for myself. Meaning that if you give it a serotonin, activator, then the body will say, "Oh, you're just going to give me serotonin? You mean I don't have to make serotonin? Fine,
Yeah.
just give it to me." And then it stopped the whole.
It won't initiate those conversion processes. You're taking tryptophan and breaking it down. Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't do that now because it just expects you to just make it easy.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean about the body being lazy. So this is the other thing. I talk to a lot of people who are taking even supplements, and I tell them you got to cycle.
Yeah.
So if you're taking a supplement, you got to go on and you got to go off it. And they do this. Bodybuilders know this because they know they have to do something called protein cycling, where they're protein supplements. They have to change them like every 30 days.
Yeah.
Or because the mechanisms that it's activating need to change. The metabolism of that needs to change. But this is true of everything. But we give pharmaceuticals today with the idea that they're going to just be on that for life.
Yeah.
Whether it's insulin or Ritalin, or whatever it is, then the body. So the entire mechanism of the body to create that now has shut down.
Gotcha. And this all ties into the kind of improvements you can make once you start quantifying data. So
Yes.
the biostrap again. So we can actually see and track our quality of sleep. We can see what our levels of stress are throughout the day,
Right.
how we're adapting to stress or not adapting to stress.
Exactly.
And then we can make changes. And that's one of the things that we wanted to talk to you about today is improving cognition. So I think that neurohacking,
Right.
that the aspect of biohacking to where we're constantly working on improving the function of our brain,
Right.
and thus our cognitive performance. And you're somewhat of an expert in this field. So I guess the question I wanted to ask you is, what are the things that we can do to not end up with chronic brain fog,
Right.
where we feel unable to perform all of our daily duties? Because I know that feeling where you're drinking caffeine and you're using stimulants and nootropics to try and get through your day if you have this huge workload and you're an athlete, and then you end up with burnout and you feel just totally fatigued and you can't accomplish any of your duties anymore. Even if you're intelligent, you just lose your cognition.
Well, you mentioned caffeine right away. Caffeine dependency is another problem because caffeine is a great biohack, but used over time too consistently, it's like anything that any substance you take in the body adapts.
Uh-huh.
So if you start with 1 cup of coffee and you get very juiced by that, and then you need to go to 2 cups of coffee, and then 3 cups of coffee.
Yeah.
So you need to cycle caffeine, for example, is one of the things. One of the things that I have become completely committed to in my consulting practice and business brain and a lot of the consulting I do sort of with even individuals, is around psychometric testing.
Yeah.
Because if you want to adapt yourself and you want to improve your cognition, your ability, the first competency of something I'm training, emotional intelligence, is self-awareness.
Okay.
So first you have to know what drives you. What is the operating system of your brain, so to speak?
Can you define emotional intelligence really quickly?
Okay, so emotional intelligence is basically the ability to understand others, have empathy, understand yourself, and be in a state of emotional awareness with the people around you. And this allows you to better communicate with others, motivate others, and do the same for yourself.
And to not behave like sociopaths.
Yes. Well, that would be the extreme case. That's extreme lack of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
But so EQ is this EQ testing. So there's a number of tests we use in the emotional intelligence space. Different type of psychometric tests. Most popular one people might be familiar with is the Myers-Briggs.
Uh-huh.
I know I don't want to knock anything, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of scientific validation for that test.
Okay.
So there's a couple that I've been using that have been much more scientifically validated.
And these are tests that you can actually go and take online?
You can take online. I mean, we offer them as part of our consulting practice, but there's a lot that you can find online.
Yeah, and you do consultation primarily for businesses.
For businesses, yeah. I focus a bit more on large organizations, so optimizing at the team and organizational level. I'm not an individual coach.
Yeah.
I have been in the past, but sort of moved away from that practice a number of years ago.
And this is called Business Brain.
Business Brain,
okay.
Yeah.
So check it out if you need help with your company and optimizing it, biohacking your company.
Yeah, basically optimizing the workplace.
Yeah.
So businessbrainllc.com. And so when you know what motivates you, so I mean, I've been doing this with some professional sports teams. When they want to coach an athlete, the coach may have an approach that they use on all of their athletes. But surprisingly, different athletes are motivated by different factors.
Yeah.
So, for example, somebody might be more motivated by the need to have social validation.
Yeah.
So their social media following, they're going to want to do social media posts about their success, and that's going to drive them to perform better.
Yeah.
But for somebody else, that's not going to matter.
Yeah.
They're going to be more internally validated. So they're going to feel better when they get some type of internal system that makes sense to them. And so that's kind of what psychometrics tell us. So that to me is kind of the first step.
Yeah.
Is you have to know what motivates you. And so how do you push your own buttons?
Yeah.
That if you know, you wake up and like you said, I'm not in the mood today.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to work. I can't do this.
And then usually people hit the caffeine.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's actually a way you can do that cognitively.
Okay.
Without even getting into the substance side or supplement side. So to me, that's first.
Does motivation ties into the dopamine reward system?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So that's another big topic.
Yeah.
But yes, if we can talk about that briefly. So one of the things that a lot of people, our dopamine system is now very tied to our social media influence.
Because you get a little dopamine hit when someone likes you, or like, ooh, I'm socially approval.
Yeah. So the other way to activate our dopamine is that we can do internally. It's very simple. Is if you keep this is an old school technique, but it works. If you keep a list of things you need to do every day, and when you check it off on the list, it's a dopamine.
It's a dopamine hit. Okay.
It's a dopamine hit.
Make your list. Check it off.
Yeah, because what happens is you say, tomorrow I need to do a podcast with Josh. Okay.
Yeah.
And now I've done it. I check it off. Oh,
and you're like, so you get that feeling.
I did it.
And then your list doesn't build up on you. Like, oh my God, I have so many things to do, and I'm not getting anything done. Any of them.
So there's those two pathways that we have that are primarily associated with motivation, or the dopamine and the serotonin. It's obviously a lot more complex than that, but a lot of times to simplify it, we talk about those two systems.
Because those are two primary neurotransmitters and systems of neurotransmission.
Yeah. So the dopamine system is more immediate, short term, and is sort of happening on a more day-to-day, instantaneous relationship.
Okay.
Whereas the serotonin is a bit more longer-term pathway.
I see.
So this, for example, a dopamine hit, like I said, you check off something on a list, or you get a like on Facebook.
When you drink caffeine, you get a dopamine hit, yeah?
I think it actually might affect both pathways.
Does it?
I don't drink coffee myself. I'm not big into the caffeine, so I should know more about that as a biohacker, but I have to admit I don't. But serotonin, you would get a hit of serotonin. They'd say, for example, best example might be is if you graduate from university. Okay. You've been working for years and years and years towards this goal.
And so that's more fulfillment
and yes. So it's a sense of fulfillment, of achievement. And it's actually very peaceful. That's the difference. Dopamine is very getting high. Dopamine is very in short bursts and very intense. Yeah. Whereas serotonin is actually, in a way, there's a calming, there's a peace, there's a stillness to it. Yeah. That doesn't have the intensity of dopamine. And what happened is we're in a culture that drives dopamine, and we've lost our connection to serotonin. Yeah. Meaning that we don't work towards the long-term goals in the same way. And these two systems developed, hundreds of thousands of years ago in the human body. So we all have them.
I've got a really important question on that. So one of the things that inhibits people from achieving heightened cognition that's sustainable is burnout.
Yes.
And so if I know stimulants give you a dopamine hit in general, nicotine, perhaps caffeine. the different addictions.
Yes.
Whether it's sex addiction, like all these,
All
like
that's all
sugar
dopamine.
addiction,
It's all
boom, all this.
dopamine.
So I think that people are trying to actually feel heightened cognition with dopamine bursts.
Yes.
So it's like
but as soon as you get one, then you have to go for the next one
Yeah.
and the next one. So
Yeah.
there's no, the serotonin is more long lasting.
Gotcha.
So the dopamine is about celebrating your successes in the short term. But
And it's
you
important.
should
We're
be-
not undermining it.
No, we're not undermining, but
Yeah.
you should be building towards longer term goals.
Yeah.
Where you can achieve things that are more fulfilling. And here's one of the key interesting things: dopamine is often very personal. Serotonin is shared with others.
Interesting.
So it's a sense of fulfillment, of achievement, but it's also something you can get that, not always, but it's often achieved through shared experience.
I see.
So if we are working with others and towards a project,
Yeah.
and we achieve that project and congratulate each other, we get endorphins, oxytocin, and serotonin.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of these happy
those
chemicals.
are basically like, and serotonin's involved in a lot of cognitive processes, but we're
Yes.
talking specifically about the reward mechanism of serotogenic neural infrastructure.
But here's the really freaky thing: 90% of the serotonin is produced in the gut.
Yeah, I've heard this.
So when somebody has a serotonin relationship with food,
Yeah.
and that's the way that they've designed the basis of their serotonin function,
Yeah.
it's a very challenging thing to change.
I see.
Because we've developed these systems get sort of entrained in certain ways, and we become very good at doing those. And so the serotonin in the gut, if you have that going on with food, that's why people have such a hard time. That's why they say it's easier to get a person to change everything in their life except their diet.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing to change.
Yeah.
Because of that, because we've developed that very specific pathway,
I see.
relationship. So when you talk about, brain fog, food for a lot of people is what's causing their brain fog. And they don't.
Which foods, like sugar, like addictive foods?
Sugar absolutely is probably the number one. I mean,
so brain fog. So we'll just define it really quick, because this is a big hindrance, right? For most people, we want what's called mental acuity is what we're looking for, where our sensory acuity is high, our vision feels sharp, our connection to the world.
Our responsiveness to stimulus in a proactive way, not in a responsive way.
Okay, gotcha.
So if you're somebody comes at you and you're freaking out, that's low emotional intelligence.
And your nervous system, you've talked a lot about, when we talked before, you've talked about neurological resilience,
right?
And so with that overstimulus and like a withdrawal or reaction from a stimulus, it's kind of, your nervous system isn't necessarily indicative of being resilient.
And that brain fog has you in a state where you can't respond at your optimum self.
It's like almost disassociative. Like when people talk about feeling disassociated,
you're on autopilot.
Yeah,
you're on autopilot. So the thing about the brain fog too, and I have to admit myself, having done this, trying to search through this most of my life, I didn't even realize I had brain fog until it lifted. Because it literally was as if a fog just lifted in front of me, and the world suddenly became more clear.
Yeah.
And so you don't know you're in the fog.
So you went from brain fog to mind sky.
Yeah. But you don't know there's a fog there. You just think that's how it is.
Yeah.
And you just think the world is a little fuzzy, cognitively. From a cognitive standpoint.
And that can lead to even depression, probably, right? Because if you're so foggy all the time, you start creating the brain tends to work in feedback.
And you don't feel connected to the world.
Yeah. So then you're not getting the serotonin pleasure responses, and
it's a very complicated system, as you can see. So the brain fog substances that are prevalent in our culture, sugar is number one.
Sugar.
Because sugar, we have a lot. I mean,
and are we talking we're talking about not only cane sugar and refined sugar, but like other sugars, like fruit sugar and honey,
even all the way to gluten and simple sugars. Because the thing is we've become so orientated towards those physiologically. That's why we have insulin dependence and metabolic syndrome.
Yeah,
it's so prevalent.
And we use it for like a glucose, because glucose is like a brain.
I know, this is the thing that freaks me out, because when I was in college and I studied human performance and health and wellness and fitness in school, they only talked about the glycogen cycle. So our muscles were powered by sugar. Yeah. And that was all we were really taught. I think there might have been a mention of, of ketosis, but it was just like in passing. And then all of a sudden, over the last, say, 5 years, everybody's been talking about ketosis and
which
fat
is conditioning
adaptations.
your body to use fat for energy.
Yes, and that to me is one of the biggest game changers around brain fog.
Okay.
Because the constant, that's when people say, my blood sugar is low, I need to eat.
Yeah.
When you start to do that switch, and I'm not saying everybody can do it.
Yeah.
It depends on your metabolics, it depends on your microbiome, it depends on a lot of factors.
Yeah.
But if you can switch from insulin operating system to ketogenic cycles, and you start to use fat as fuel, what happens is the body's adapted to that. Your energy levels stay high. It's more sustained energy. The brain is mostly fat. The neurons, the myelin, and all of the nervous system is all fat. It's all lipids.
Yeah. So fat containing the electrical wiring of the nervous system. So, like a sheath.
So to me, that's one of the most amazing things that I think we need to understand as a culture. Because if we look at diabetes, insulin dependence, and metabolic syndrome, that's all sugar.
Yeah.
And so if we shift from that, and again, you can operate in both. And one of the interesting things that I found recently as well is that a lot of women don't do as well on low carbs as men. So there may be a need for certain women, depending on their physiology. They even if they are practicing, ketogenic lifestyle, they may need to have a bit more fruit sugars than a guy does.
Yeah.
So that's something that I don't hear talked about a lot on podcasts where people are saying this. So really, though, the key is to start to look at how can you shift your body, or at least operate between those two systems. Because if you're completely on the insulin system only as your source of energy, then
depending on glucose for energy.
Yeah, depending on glucose for energy, absolutely. So that is one great way to reduce brain fog on a biological level.
Is brain fog kind of inflammatory? Is it like, because all this talk about sugar makes me think about inflammation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's some theories of health that say there's really inflammation is kind of the cause of almost all disease, according to some people.
But we also our body has to inflame a little bit even to heal. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But chronic
sustained inflammation, which is probably
inflammation and acidity is what a lot of people think is what causes a lot. Because whenever you go to an area of the body where there's a problem, there's inflammation, and the environment tends to be acidic.
I see. And it almost feels like there's maybe a correlation between this lifestyle of constant dopamine hits and sugar, and just the way that we're living in like a hyper-stimulated way that it feels inflammatory.
Yeah, it's overactivating. It's overstimulus.
Yeah.
So that's one of the other things in terms around improving cognition, is that you also have to start to have a mindset that orientates your brain in the direction of success and achievement.
Yeah.
So, you have the physiological
and that's kind of like the sleep and the stress and the where we're making energy from, glucose or fat.
But also just even the mindset.
Yeah.
How do you approach the world?
Yeah.
When you get up in the morning, how are you approaching the day? And that's why, it's become popular now, as well as meditation. A lot of people talk about having a gratitude practice. I mean, because
gratitude can change your physiology.
Yeah, and meditating, which in a way, I don't think people need to get caught up on the idea. You don't need to sit cross-legged with your hands like this to be meditating.
You don't need to be a mystic and like a yogi.
I'll tell you, my favorite form of meditation is riding my motorcycle.
Oh, wow.
Because if you think about how I like to define meditation, is being hyper-focused on a task where the mental distractions you're not paying attention to. So anything where you do hyper focus, it's a type of a flow. So when I'm riding a motorcycle, especially in Los Angeles in this traffic, I'm hyper focused, right? Because it's life or death. So my nervous system
that's a very active meditation.
It's a very active meditation.
It's not a relaxing parasympathetic meditation.
But it does have that effect as well, because I'm on a state of high alertness, but I enter a state of flow as well.
And define flow, because we've talked about flow. And I had a different association to most people when they use the word flow and flow state. It's a little different than the way that you're defining it.
Yeah, well, because from the research that I've done and from my understanding of it, is that people think flow is a very calm, almost like a neutral state.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah.
It's actually a state of high challenge, but high skill.
Okay. So like athletes and...
That's why we talk about athletes in the flow. So, if you watch an athlete step up to the podium about to perform, say, in the Olympics, a gymnastic routine, that's a state of flow.
Yeah.
Now they're doing something. Me and you, we can't do that.
Yeah.
They're highly trained, they're highly skilled. But if they can drop their nervous system down into a state of calm before this explosion of intensity, so there's a cognitive aspect to it, is to be able to remain calm in the face of stress.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the most important moment of their life.
Yeah.
But I got to remain calm.
Yeah.
Because if I become hyper agitated in that moment, I'm not going to perform.
Totally.
But I also need to be ready to explode with skill. So that's actually a state of high stress, but it's eustress, not distress.
Eustress, as in Y-O-U?
No, it's actually with an E, but it's pronounced like you, stress.
Okay, yeah.
And so it's this idea that there's a state of optimum stress.
Yeah.
And so,
because stress, most people have an association that's just stress is bad.
And this is one of the big things that I do in my consulting practice, to go in and tell people it's the stress that's not optimized to your skill set, to your motivations, to your lifestyle. So if you're in a job,
that's the bad stress.
No. If it's not optimized, then it becomes distress. Distress is the bad stress, and eustress is the good stress.
Yeah.
So basically, that's all it is, and there's different levels of that. But if you're at eustress, comes when your skill meets the stress level. But if your skill is low and what you're expected to do is beyond your skill level, then you get stressed.
Yeah, got you.
So this is
then you get distressed.
Then you get distress, and then your nervous system is overwhelmed.
Totally. And living in that state of overwhelm can lead to problems.
Right. That's chronic disease.
Yeah.
Is waiting to happen.
Yeah.
So basically, the key is to just also train yourself to build that resilience in the face of stress.
Yeah.
So that instead of looking at stress as something like, oh, geez, that's too much, I can't handle it, it's more like, how do I build my resilience to face that? So that's where training comes in. That's where, that's why one of the other things that can release brain fog is high intensity interval training.
Okay.
Because you push your body to its absolute peak limit.
Yeah.
And then you stop and you recover.
Yeah.
And then you go to your peak limit and you recover. And what's amazing is that 15 minutes of high intensity interval training have a better effect on the physiology than a 60 minutes on the treadmill or the elliptical at the gym. So you see all these people lined up at the gym, and everyone's doing 60 minutes on those
kind
ellipticals.
Of long-term endurance training. But to actually push your body to so long as you're not injured and there's you could hurt yourself with that level of pushing yourself. But to push yourself to where your nervous system can't really sustain too much more intensity.
Yes.
And then to back off.
Because what you're telling your body and your nervous system and your physiology, your cardiovascular system, is that you have to get more resilient.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to push you.
Yeah.
And this translates to me very directly into mindset.
Yeah.
Because you have to do that as well. You have to push yourself to the point where you're outside the comfort zone.
Yeah.
And then you're everything in you, right, says, I have to become more resilient.
Yeah.
So because if this happens again, I want to be ready.
Totally. And that has a lot to do with mindset. And
that is the key to this whole thing.
Yeah.
If you can find the way to do that in your life, and that's why I think, you kind of need to have some type of exercise practice.
Yeah.
And you have to find some way to push yourself to your limits. Because if you don't, you get comfortable and you get lazy. And our bodies weren't made to sit around in desks and watch TV.
Totally.
This is not what this physiology was made for. We were made to be running through the savannah, hunting game and fighting for survival.
So it's not all mental. You can't do crosswords all day and meditate and think about stuff to really achieve heightened sustainable cognition. You got to move your body. You got to push your body, because part of improved cognition is actually physical.
Yes.
Yeah.
So to kind of summarize, there's a dietary component, right? That is again based very much on metabolism. So this is where the biohacking comes in. I can't tell you what is the strategy
and this
for
is
you.
Sugars and fats and all.
In generally speaking, we could say that sugars definitely are something we all need to probably reduce in our lives.
Yeah.
looking at how can we find relationships with healthy fats that work with our body. How can we also even eat less?
Yeah.
Because that's another thing that puts a little bit of stress in the body, but it's a
The
good type of
intermittent
stress.
fasting.
Intermittent fasting, or just even if you don't want to do that on a daily basis, almost every spiritual tradition and religion in the world has a cycle of fasting as part of the year.
Water fasting, or just several days of cutting out
Yeah,
foods.
or just maybe not eating for a certain period
I
of day.
read a study recently that said fasting can have dramatic improvements on your immune system.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they've shrunk cancer cells just because cancer loves sugar. So cancer cells love
Another
sugar.
thing about sugar.
So if you take away the source of fuel, it's hard for the cancer to proliferate.
Yeah.
If you don't give it, you starve it.
Yeah.
You starve it from sugar. That's what it needs.
Yeah.
So and that's true of a lot of diseases too.
Yeah.
Is that if you completely go on a fast, your system goes into a state of metabolic recovery, and basically eliminates everything that's not essential.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of, and it's still, in the scientific field and medical field, a lot of this is still to some degree not fully accepted by everyone, but there's a lot of research that's
and a lot of this is on PubMed. It's not these aren't opinions of ours. These are actually like quantified scientific peer-reviewed studies on PubMed.org.
Yeah, you can look at all the research on metabolic syndrome.
Yeah.
I mean, fasting is just literally people have gone off their insulin.
Yeah.
People have just fasted and no longer diabetic.
I guess the body has self-corrective mechanisms so long as we can initiate that. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with biohacking.
Yes.
And it's interesting because what I'm really my personal takeaway from this is I was talking to a neuroscientist recently who was telling me that the brain is primarily feedback loop driven.
Yes.
And all of these behaviors and mindset and exercise routines and pretty much everything that we're doing on the level of improving cognition is almost like installing software that's feedback loop driven. So we're kind of a negative feedback loop could potentially be like I'm eating sugar and smoking cigarettes and doing all these things.
And I'm on Facebook as my only source of dopamine. That has any validation to me, or Instagram or whatever it is. So the thing that's difficult is that feedback loop nature of the brain from the neuroscience perspective also has to do with basically another way of looking at it, maybe a little more negative, but honest, is we're also like addiction machines. So whatever and
that can be good or bad.
It can be good or bad. So one of the things I like to tell people is you're going to get your dopamine. You're going to get your dopamine one way or another.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can say, well, I'm going to go on Facebook and I'll be fine. No. If you're getting your dopamine from Facebook, you
still got to get it somehow.
Where are you going to get it from instead?
Yeah. What happens to so what if you just cut off of Facebook and cut off of Tinder and cut off of all things?
It's not going to work.
And then you just try and go sit at the beach.
Yeah.
Your mind's just going to start.
It's very difficult. The level of discipline. Now, some people have successfully achieved it, but I'll tell you, the vast majority of people don't have that level of discipline and resilience at first.
Yeah.
So you have to always look at it. Okay, I'm going to change from this, but what are you going to give yourself in exchange?
Yeah.
So you can't cut a behavior. You can exchange behavior.
What's a good, because I know that social media addiction, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, all the dating apps, all these things, this is our culture right now.
Yes.
So what's a good replacement from getting social validation off an app and your phone?
With real people.
Oh, real people.
Go come to our biohacking meetup where there's real people.
Yeah.
Go find the meetup where you're socially interacting.
So that's a good app, and that's something you can use on your phone too.
Yes, where you're meeting real people. I tell you, the combination, the thing that's really great as well, and we talk about this in biohacking as well, you can use something called stacking.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really want to make a lifestyle
stacking
change,
biohacks.
So stacking biohacks. So one of the things is when you start to change your diet, you start to get some things changing in your physiology. When that change starts happening, if you change something else in your life, it's starting to push you. These things can stack on top of each other to move you in a good direction. But you need a lot of reinforcement. So really, for behavioral change, in the model that I've developed, there's actually 4 stages. First stage is the pattern interrupt.
Okay.
So you need to figure out what the pattern is, and you need to come in and you need to sort of
the negative feedback loop.
And this often happens to people organically in the sense that they're walking around, all of a sudden they go to their doctor and he says, you have cardiovascular disease, or you're now diabetic. That's a pattern interrupt. Yeah. Because you're just walking around, la, 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 I'm eating, I'm doing what I want, I'm not going to the gym, everything's fine.
And now all of a sudden you have a red flag, and if you don't do this, there's going to be serious consequences.
So that's a great moment. Now, we can do this for ourselves, but this often is like a bolt of lightning from outside of ourselves.
Like a drug addict intervention.
Yeah. So once you get that pattern interrupt, there's a window of time where that person goes, oh, geez, what do I do? You know, I don't want to be sick. I don't want to be on insulin for the rest of my life. So what do you do? So now this is the key thing. Usually, if you do that by yourself, your patterns aren't going to be sufficient to take you out of that situation. So this is why people go
like your software, the programs
the programming you're running,
because you're going to cut off this program that's hurting you. But then where do you go?
You don't have you need to install new software.
Okay, yeah.
You need to install a new program. So then people so people then they go and search. So they start going to Tony Robbins, or they go to this guru or that teacher or this person to try to figure out what's the new software I can install to change the program. But here's where it breaks down. Even though you get the new software to download, and you download it, you read the book, you go to the seminar, you go to you download the app on your phone or whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not reinforced effectively. So what happens after a period of time, right? The behavior, the new behavior doesn't stick.
Yeah.
Right. And as the neuroscientists say, the neurons that fire together wire together.
Yeah.
So those neurons are all locked
so
up.
You got to literally build neural pathways.
Well, you literally have to decouple this very developed pathway.
Yeah.
And you have to decouple that and then rewire new.
And that's kind of also what some of what I've read about PTSD is what those traumas and all the emotions and everything and the chemistry. That's like it's like hardwired, glued synapses together. So you have to decouple.
So this is why I don't like all these people promising, we'll change your life in a workshop or in a weekend or in come and I'll do one hypnosis session. I've studied and all of these things, and I'm not taking it away from any of these practitioners, but that's not the reality. It's really not. I don't think it's fair. It's part of the sales pitch of our modern culture.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're trying to
marketing.
It's marketing.
Marketing.
Yeah. And so the reality is you get a pattern interrupt, you do need to get something from the outside. So that's where those things are useful.
And that's why you need a biostrap so you can see.
So if it's actually changing your biology. And so you need something from the outside to come. So you do need to go to a coach or a trainer or take a program. I mean, I do
like a meta programmer, like someone who can help you. Okay, I see where you're at. Let's put some new programs in.
But you need a long-term reinforcement strategy for that new thing to stick.
Yeah.
And that is minimum, the research says minimum 60 to 90 days to just be forming the new pathway. So if you can even get to the 90-day mark with the new behavior, you just think about it, you have like this very tenuous little couple neurons sort of reconnecting.
It's like a little baby.
It's a little baby. It's a fragile new neuron pathway that you got to be really careful with. And it's
precious because it's like everything's depending on making those new ones if you want to really get healthy.
Yeah, and then but even after 90 days, like that, you're not done.
Yeah.
It still needs a lot of reinforcement. So you need, 6 months, a year for that thing to become solid and then to become a new behavior.
Yeah.
So if you achieve that, then you actually have now rewired. So you got to interrupt the pattern. You got to introduce something. So you got to introduce some type of an intervention, a meta program, right? Then you have to reinforce it for a pretty substantial period of time, and then you've rewired.
And then you kind of have created a new baseline.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is true of anything you want to change.
Yeah.
Like I said, you can look at it, you can maybe just do one thing at a time. I mean, that's the thing that's cool about BioStrap and some of the biohacking techniques is if you just measure and you do one thing. So I go from I change my diet and I go to a ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
So I'm practicing keto.
Yeah.
Then I can see how does keto change all of my biomarkers. I get my blood tested.
Yeah.
And then I pre and post, and I see, is this improving me?
And you can kind of like monitor. It's almost like you're monitoring your feedback loops.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the whole idea, the whole picture of what you can do. So, so there's a cognitive aspect. I think most people need some type of, actually I know most people need some type of external coaching or support system. You need an accountability system.
Totally.
Whether it's a one-on-one with a coach who's coaching you, or just maybe it could even be your spouse or your friends, and you say, okay, all of us are going to go on this new diet, and everybody agrees to do it together, but people are going to hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So the key thing for this change is that accountability. So I'm not going to say it's an easy equation, but it's doable. People are doing it all the time.
Yeah.
And when you do it, it's fun. Because once you get into the new pathway, like right now, I mean, I didn't do high intensity interval training for most of my life, but now the endorphins that I get from that high intensity interval training now are very addictive.
Oh yeah.
So now my body is physiologically addictive. If I go 6 days without high intensity interval training, I feel it physiologically, and I do not feel good.
Yeah.
Because I'm starting to feel like, I feel brain fog coming on.
So this is an example of a good addiction.
But it is an addiction of kind. It's a kind. But like I said, you have to decide what your addictions are going to be.
Totally, because we're gonna need them. I mean, that because of the dopamine reward system, we're gonna have some type of addiction. That's just how our patterning works. So you might as well have addictions like high intensity interval training and neurofeedback and healthy socialization and doing all these things that reinforce healthy neuropathways.
And one of the other ones, just before, I know we're probably almost out of time, one of the really simplest biohacks that everybody should do is using sunlight and nature. You don't need any tools.
You don't need a whole
any
laboratory. Yeah.
You don't need a biostrap, which is great. All these things are great, but just get up in the morning, go look at the sun.
Yeah.
Go take in sun, take in light. Walk on the earth barefoot. If you're fortunate to be in a place with a beach, go walk on the beach. Do things in nature. Pets, petting your cat or your dog raises your HRV.
Yeah.
Right. Just doing that simple act.
Yeah.
Raises your HRV because you're engaging with a living being.
Yeah.
Who is in a state of nature.
And this is important because we don't need to look at biohacking as this hyper technological thing that's inaccessible and kind of strange. It's really just like engaging with life in a very healthy way.
And the joke I think is funny is that we've reached this age where we have so much technology that now we have to use technology to solve the problems that technology created, and that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
So, when we can also do some of those primal things, those are very important. Getting out in nature, going camping, just being with people, hugging people you care about, all these things, I mean, the quick way to get oxytocin and endorphins, just get a hug.
Give someone a hug.
Give someone a hug.
Go give someone a hug. And selfless service they've actually in all the ancient religions and Hinduism, they always talk about seva, just being of service to people. It makes you feel unimaginably good.
Our brains are actually pre-wired for that.
Yeah.
So we're wired to be of service to others.
The ultimate biohack. Go do something nice.
Yeah, go do something nice. Walk barefoot on the earth in the sunshine and snuggle.
Yeah.
There you go. That could be that simple too.
And we're both super nerdy. We love the technology. We love all this stuff, but it's like we just have to make small steps.
Yeah. So thank you for having me, I guess.
Yeah.
It's great to be here.
Absolutely.
And hopefully you find what works for you.
Definitely. Thank you so much, you guys.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay. See you guys.